biggest lie in the gun industry right now isn't about one caliber being better than another. It's the claim that modern ammunition made 9mm and .45 ACP interchangeable. That claim sells twice the holsters, twice the magazines, and twice the ammo. And it isn't true. The differences between these rounds are real, they're measurable, and they matter depending on who you are, what you carry, and how often you actually get to the range. Today we're breaking down 7 guns across both calibers that most people walk right past. We'll explain exactly why each one deserves a harder look from anyone paying attention. First up, the Springfield Armory Garrison 1911 in .45 ACP. This is the gun the old heads have been carrying for decades and the internet keeps telling them to ditch. Here's what the internet won't tell you. When a .45 ACP hollow point fails to expand, and independent testing shows that happens roughly 1 out of every 3 times through heavy barriers, you're still left with a .452 caliber projectile punching a hole nearly 30% wider than a failed 9mm. That's not marketing, that's diameter. The Garrison gives you a forged steel frame, a match-grade barrel that'll group tighter than most shooters deserve, and a trigger that breaks like you're snapping a glass rod. This thing runs at 21,000 psi chamber pressure compared to 35,000 for a 9mm, which means less stress on every part of the gun. A properly maintained 1911 will go 50,000 rounds and still lock up tight. Your grandkids will be shooting this thing. You can pick one up right now for $680 to $780 at most dealers. For a full steel .45 that'll outlast you in your retirement plan, that's a lifetime tool priced like a mid-shelf impulse buy. Next, the Canik TP9SF in 9mm. This is the gun that Turkey built so well it embarrassed companies charging twice as much. Most guys skip it because the name isn't American and it doesn't have the Glock cult behind it. Their loss is your massive gain. The TP9SF gives you a match-grade barrel, a Warren tactical sight setup, and one of the best factory triggers in the striker-fired world. We're talking a clean short reset that lets you run follow-up shots faster than pistols costing $400 more. And here's the real 9mm advantage at work. Bulk 9mm FMJ is running 18 to 22 cents a round right now in April 2026. At 200 rounds a month, you're spending roughly $40 to $50 less per range session than you would feeding a .45. Over a year, that's $500 to $600 extra dollars in your pocket. Or better yet, $500 to $600 more dollars worth of trigger time. The shooter who puts 500 rounds downrange every month will outperform the guy who fires 100 rounds of .45 once a month and calls it good. That's not a caliber argument, that's a budget argument. The TP9SF runs $340 to $400 depending on the dealer. For what some guys spend on a Glock 19 and a set of aftermarket sights, you get this gun, a pile of ammo, and change left over. Third, the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 compact in .45 ACP. This is the modern polymer .45 that nobody talks about because everyone's too busy arguing about the 9mm version. Here's why it matters. If you're carrying a compact gun, and in 2026 almost everybody is, barrel length changes everything. A 9mm hollow point needs velocity to expand, and that velocity comes from powder burning inside the barrel. Cut that barrel down to 3 inches and you lose velocity. Independent testing with 147 grain 9mm loads showed that from a subcompact barrel, expansion dropped dramatically and penetration blew past acceptable limits. Same bullet, same load, different barrel, different result. The .45 ACP uses faster burning powders and a larger bore diameter, which means gas expands efficiently even in shorter barrels. A .45 from a compact barrel retains more of its terminal performance than a 9mm from the same length. The M&P 2.0 compact in .45 gives you an 18-degree grip angle that points naturally, aggressive texturing that won't slip when your palms are sweating, and 4 interchangeable palm swell inserts so it actually fits your hand instead of somebody else's. You're looking at $480 to $550 at most shops. A compact .45 that doesn't punish you for choosing a shorter barrel is worth every cent of that. If you're getting something out of this breakdown, the kind of content that respects what you already know, instead of explaining what a hollow point is for the 50th time, hit subscribe. There's more of this every week. Fourth, the Glock 19 Gen 5 MOS in 9mm. Yes, everyone and their cousin owns one. Yes, it's on every single list. But here's the angle nobody covers. If you live in California, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maryland, or any state that caps magazines at 10 rounds, the 9mm's biggest advantage disappears entirely. 10 rounds of 9mm versus 10 rounds of .45 ACP means the capacity gap is 0. At that point, you're comparing terminal ballistics on equal footing, and the .45 starts winning on diameter alone. But if you live in a free state, the Glock 19 gives you 15 plus 1 rounds of federal HST, which was specifically engineered with a skive jacket design to expand consistently even through heavy clothing barriers. Premium 9mm defensive ammo like HST runs 55 cents to $1 per round. Premium .45 HST runs 60 cents to $1.10. That gap is almost nothing for the 1 or 2 magazines of carry ammo you replace once a year. The ammo that actually matters in a fight costs nearly the same in both calibers. The Glock 19 Gen 5 MOS sits at $580 to $640, and it's cut from the factory for a red dot. Bomb-proof reliability, universal holster support, and aftermarket parts that'll be available long after we're all gone. Fifth, the Sig Sauer P220 Legion in .45 ACP. This is the gun for the shooter whose hands aren't what they were 20 years ago. And there is zero shame in that. The .45 ACP operates at lower chamber pressure, creating a slow rolling push that rocks the wrist back gradually. The 9mm generates a sharper, snappier impulse, a quick sting that travels through the hand and into the joints. For a shooter dealing with arthritis, carpal tunnel, or reduced grip strength, that snap causes flinching. And flinching destroys accuracy. A flinch pulls the muzzle down and left for a right-handed shooter. And you won't know it's happening until it's too late. The P220 Legion gives you a full steel frame that soaks up recoil, a grey Cerakote finish that'll survive decades of holster wear, and the X-ray 3-day night sights that you can actually see when it matters. Shoot 50 rounds of plus P9mm through a compact polymer frame, then shoot 50 rounds of .45 through this gun. Ask your wrists which session they'd rather repeat next Saturday. That's not weakness, that's biomechanics. The P220 Legion runs $1,250 to $1,400. That's serious money, but this is a serious gun built for hands that have earned every ache they've got. Sixth, the Ruger Security 380 in, well, .380 ACP. Wait, hear me out. This is the overlooked budget entry for the shooter who tried compact 9mm and honest to God cannot run it without flinching anymore. The Security 380 is built on a light rack slide that takes about half the effort to cycle. Ruger designed it specifically for people with reduced hand strength. It feeds, fires, extracts, and does it all for $280 to $330 at most dealers right now. Is 380 ideal? No. Is a .380 you can actually shoot accurately better than a 9mm you're flinching through? Every single day of the week. A gun you shoot well beats a gun you shoot poorly regardless of what's stamped on the barrel. For a nightstand gun or a deep concealment piece for someone with genuine hand limitations, this is the honest recommendation nobody wants to make because it isn't sexy. Seventh, the Kimber Custom II in .45 ACP. This is for the guy who wants to thread a suppressor onto a nightstand gun and not think twice about ammunition compatibility. Every single factory .45 ACP load on the market is already subsonic. A standard 230 grain load leaves the muzzle at roughly 830 feet per second, well under the 1125 feet per second sound barrier. Thread a can on a .45 and whatever's sitting in your magazine right now works. No specialty ammo, no different point of impact, no different recoil impulse than what you trained with. The 9mm requires subsonic loads, typically 147 grain or heavier, which changes expansion characteristics, shifts point of impact, and gives you a different recoil feel than the 124 grain plus P you ran at the range. You're essentially shooting a different round than what you practiced with. The Kimber Custom II runs $750 to $850, and you can find threaded barrel versions without much hunting. For a suppressor-ready .45 that runs the same ammo quiet or loud, it's the simpler system by a mile. Here's where this lands. The round you carry matters less than whether you've actually tested it. Have you fired your carry ammunition through your carry gun into anything resembling a realistic barrier? Have you confirmed it feeds, fires, extracts, and groups where you aim from your specific barrel length? If the answer is no, then the caliber debate is the least of your problems. Buy the round that matches your hands, your budget, and your barrel. Verify it works. Then stop reading forums and go put 500 rounds downrange.